Welcome to my channel. Tony clutched the Shard of Eternity in his hand, its cool touch a grounding sensation amid the swirling chaos of his emotions. His journey had led him through treacherous mazes, across battle-scarred landscapes, and into the very heart of a tempestuous sea. But now the ocean had stilled and the path before him was a breathtaking vista of clouds. They stretched out like an uncharted sea, dotted with islands of mist that hid strange peaks and valleys crafted from swirling vapor. And from somewhere within this ethereal expanse, he could feel the presence of the Wind Whisperer, someone who had mastered the very essence of these skies. He took a step forward, feeling the sand shift beneath his boots and the wind tugged at his cloak like an invisible hand urging him onward. The sky rumbled with distant drums, echoing the beat of Tony's adventurous heart. In his hand, the Shard of Eternity pulsed with a soft light, illuminating the path before him towards the horizon. As Tony walked, the ground beneath him solidified, transforming into a broad, flat plain. In the distance, a colossal mountain range pierced the clouds, their peaks wreathed in mist and majesty. With each step, the sounds of the world below faded away, replaced by the rising wind and the distant cry of unseen seabirds. Reaching the base of the cloud sea, Tony looked back, but the path behind him had vanished, leaving him with a sense of solitude that mirrored the endless expanse of the sky above. Still, he pressed forward, drawn by the promise of adventure and the whispered secrets of the wind. The path climbed steadily upward, leading Tony higher and higher into the boundless expanse of the cloud sea. As he ascended, the air grew thinner, making each breath a bit more challenging. Yet Tony pressed on, invigorated by the sheer wonder of the world unfolding around him. After what felt like hours of steady ascent, the path finally reached its end at the base of a towering mountain peak that seemed to pierce the very heavens. The peak was smooth and featureless, offering no handholds or footholds. It was a daunting sight, testing the limits of Tony's courage and determination. But then he noticed something. Etched along the side of the peak were ancient symbols glowing with an otherworldly light. Each symbol resonated with the Shard of Eternity in his hand, guiding him closer to the mountain's summit. Steeling himself, Tony placed his hand on the first glowing symbol. A surge of energy coursed through him, lending him superhuman strength. With renewed vigor, he continued upward, his gaze fixed on the next symbol, which shone just a little higher and a little farther away. As he moved from symbol to symbol, each new glyph bestowed him with a fresh burst of energy, allowing him to scale the seemingly insurmountable peak. With every step, the wind grew stronger, whipping around him, carrying whispers of forgotten lore and the echoes of ancient voices. And as he reached the final symbol, a brilliant light erupted from the mountain's peak, bathing the cloud sea below in a radiant glow. As the light subsided, Tony found himself standing on a plateau of solid ground, windswept and magnificent. Before him stood a path of purest white marble leading to a magnificent temple. Its pillars were carved into wings and the bodies of soaring birds, and its roof was a symphony of swirling clouds. This was the Skywind Temple, and it beckoned to Tony with promises of wisdom and enlightenment. But as he stepped onto the marble path, the entrance to the temple remained sealed, and upon the doors were etched ancient words, "Listen and answer, for the gates of heaven open with song, not with strength." Tony stood before the temple, pondering the inscription. He realized that to enter, he needed more than brute force or magical might. He had to offer something else, something the ancients had valued deeply, their music. As he closed his eyes, he remembered the melodies he had collected on his travels, songs of love and loss, tales of bravery and hope. Each note resonated within him, a vibrant thread in the tapestry of life. Drawing a deep breath, Tony began to sing. His voice echoed through the valley, carrying on the wings of the wind, weaving a tapestry of sound. And as he sang, the clouds around him swirled and danced, forming shapes of mythical creatures and celestial beings. They soared and dipped, responding to the rhythm of his song, as if the very essence of the sky was joining in. The wind joined his song, rising in chorus, playing a melody of unseen instruments. The mountains themselves seemed to vibrate, their ancient stones humming along to his tune. The song built in intensity, reaching a crescendo that shook the foundations of the Cloud Sea. Then, as suddenly as it began, the song ended, leaving behind a ringing silence. In the stillness, Tony heard the soft click of the temple doors swinging inward. Astonished, he looked back but saw no one. Had the wind answered his song? Was someone within listening? Taking a deep breath, Tony stepped through the doors and into the temple. Inside, the air was still and warm, alive with the scent of ages past. As his eyes adjusted to the dim light filtering through stained glass windows, Tony saw a vast hall stretching before him. It was a place of tranquility, filled with relics of a long-forgotten time. Ancient instruments lay on pedestals, their forms intricate and otherworldly. And in the center of it all, bathed in a golden light, rested a magnificent crystal feather. It shimmered with an inner luminescence, pulsing with the very heartbeat of the sky. This was the crystal feather of the Wind Whisperer's most treasured possession. As Tony approached, the feather seemed to hum in recognition. He could feel its connection to the winds of the sky, their whispers echoing through its crystalline structure. Reaching out, he gently touched the feather. In that instant, a rush of wind and images flooded his mind. He saw sweeping vistas of the world beyond the Cloud Sea, lush green jungles teeming with life and sparkling waterfalls cascading down sheer rock faces. He sensed the power of the wind, its ability to heal and to nurture, to inspire and to guide. With newfound clarity, Tony understood the responsibility that came with wielding the crystal feather of the wind. It wasn't just a relic of the past, but a living, breathing part of the present and future. As he lifted the feather, he felt its power surge through him, filling him with the strength and wisdom of generations past. He was ready to carry on the legacy of the Wind Whisperers, to use their song and the feather's power to protect and heal the world below. But as he turned to leave the temple, a deep voice echoed through the hall. "So you have found the crystal feather of the wind, but why should we trust you with its power?" From the shadows, a figure emerged, cloaked in flowing robes, their face hidden by a hood. "Who are you?" Tony asked, his voice echoing in the vast space. "I am the guardian of the Skywind," the cloaked figure replied. "And I must test your heart to ensure you are worthy of the feather's gift." The guardian raised a hand, and the air crackled with power. "Answer my riddles, and you shall pass. Fail, and the feather's power will be lost to you forever." Tony squared his shoulders, meeting the guardian's gaze. "Ask your questions," he said, his voice ringing with confidence. The guardian's eyes narrowed, and a wicked smile crept across their face. "Very well," they said, their voice echoing with amusement. "Let the trials begin." And so began a series of daunting challenges, each designed to test a different aspect of Tony's being. First, the guardian conjured a whirlwind of images and emotions, each meant to distract and confuse. But Tony stood firm, focusing on the task at hand and blocking out the distractions. Next, the guardian challenged Tony's physical prowess, hurling bolts of wind and forcing him to dodge and weave to avoid their full force. Tony moved with surprising agility, his body instinctively responding to the rhythm of the wind, but the guardian was relentless. They summoned gusts of wind that threatened to knock Tony off his feet, each gust stronger and more unpredictable than the last. Just when it seemed like Tony might succumb to the wind's fury, he remembered the lessons he had learned from the masters of the air. He relaxed his body, surrendering to the flow of the wind and letting it carry him aloft. He twisted and turned, mimicking the wind's movements, until he was soaring through the air with effortless grace. The guardian watched in silence, their amusement fading, replaced by a look of grudging respect. The final trial was one of wisdom and compassion. The guardian presented Tony with a choice, a chance to inflict harm on another in exchange for knowledge that could help him on his journey. Tony hesitated. It went against everything he believed in to intentionally hurt someone, even if it meant gaining valuable insights. But then he realized that the true test wasn't about the choice itself, but how he justified it. He chose compassion over cruelty, understanding over ignorance, and the guardian's face softened, their form shimmering as they began to fade. "You have passed the trials," the guardian said, their voice filled with newfound respect. Take the feather and use it wisely, young adventurer. The fate of the world may depend on it. As the guardian vanished, the feather pulsed warmly in Tony's hand. He knew his journey was far from over. The world below needed his help, and the crystal feather of the wind would guide his way. And so, with a newfound sense of purpose, Tony stepped out of the Skywind Temple and into the boundless expanse of the cloud sea. Below him, the world waited, and within him, the spirit of the wind whispered tales of adventure and hope. His journey was far from over, but with each step, Tony felt the strength and wisdom of the wind whisperers guiding his path. The adventure was his to shape, and he knew that the song of the sky would be his constant companion.